All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Prime Pediatric Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Skip Weiss, and I have an amazing, incredible honor today to interview one of my close personal mentors, Dr. Marty Rosen. Dr. Martin, how you doing, Dr. Rosen? It's so good to see you. How have you been?
I've been great, Skip. It's great to see you, and I appreciate you having me on this podcast. And if I'm one of your mentors, I'm very proud of what you've been doing all these years. I mean, it's amazing to watch what you've been doing. And again, I'm really happy to be here and grateful that you had me on.
Well, I'm humble in saying that. I guys, you've heard me say this on this podcast time in and time out for 3 years. My cranial work, the stuff that I do, everything that I've learned is directly out of Dr. Rosen's mouth, directly out of his books, directly out of his writings. He is who I learned my stuff through. This is the man, and I can't wait to talk with you, Dr. Rosen. So can you do me a favor? Can you give me a little bit of a journey? Some of my audience does not know who you are. So can you give me a little journey as to where you've been, where you are now, and
Sure.
how you became who you are?
Okay. Went to chiropractic school in 1978, graduated in 1981, probably before half your audience was born.
Yeah.
Met my wife there, Dr. Nancy Watson. We met at Sherman, went to Sherman for a year, ended up transferring to Life. And we got married and had a baby and moved up to Massachusetts. In that time, I got turned on to SOT. I met Major DeJournette in 1979. Got very involved in SOT. So was Nancy. Matter of fact, she was the person who turned me on to SOT. I was a upper cervical practitioner until she blocked me one day and my world changed. And so I started teaching for DeJournette. I was a certified instructor for DeJournette, for Sorcy, advanced certified instructor, Craniopath. And I actually developed the first pediatric program for Sorcy in 1999. I did a full pediatric program. From there, I went to work with a group called Soda USA, because I wanted to continue my teaching, and that was a good venue for that. I became the president of Soda USA. Taught with them in that interim. I also worked for the ICPA and taught with them for 15 years. And over the years, I've kind of codified 40 years of clinical experience and work, working with infants, because the big impetus around that was when we graduated chiropractic school in 1981, my wife was 7.5 months pregnant, and we had this beautiful baby, 2 months later. And we had the understanding of how important chiropractic was and optimum attention was, and developing this wonderful, amazing nervous system. But sadly, we didn't have the skill set. So I'm one of those people, and I know you're one of those people. If I want something, I need to go out and get it. So I started working with DeJournette with SOT paradigms and kind of modifying them to fit the pediatric skull, the pediatric nervous system. And over those years, I developed the pediatric program, which I still teach now, which is my own pediatric program as well. And I got into it out of the love of chiropractic and the love of my children. I have 2 daughters. One is a chiropractor. She graduated Life in 2013. My other daughter, Emily, lives out in Colorado, and she's been in the healthcare space for years. And my wife also, as I said, is a chiropractor, and we run Wellesley Chiropractic Office, which has been in existence since September 25th, 1982. And it's a family-oriented practice and always has been.
I was born a month later.
Great, thanks. I feel much better now. That's awesome.
It makes me feel great. And the funny thing is, Dr. Marty, is your story is exactly how my story is. Oh. And, my daughter, Julie, was pregnant a month and a half after we were married. She had Peyton 2 months after I graduated from Palmer. Peyton was my first actual pediatric infant adjustment.
Right.
I knew that I had to know kids. And then once I adjusted my daughter, she changed my life. And it sounds to me like your daughter changed your life.
Absolutely.
Trajectory. And it's funny how women do that to us, right? Whether it's our daughters or your wife turns you on to SOT, which
she did.
I think SOT should give her a plaque for that, because you're one of the.
They actually have one. Yes, they have given.
Can they give you a plaque?
I think they give her a plaque for her accomplishments, not for my accomplishments, but they did acknowledge the fact that she was a certified SOT practitioner and teacher as well.
That's amazing. Now you see a flaw, and so do I. And the flaw is these students still to this day don't get the pediatric education they need. Because chiropractic schools, bless their hearts, they're preparing us to come out, but they're creating adult-based chiropractic doctors. which couldn't be farther from what needs the most closest attention, is that pediatric and newborn spine.
Absolutely.
So can you go into that, Dr. Rosen, as far as what's the point of that, and where do you see the flaws? How do we fix that? I know you can fix it, so you can go right on into that.
So I think, so even Major DeJarnette, right, who graduated chiropractic school in 1924, he wrote in 1967, the only true subluxation you ever see must be in a child before the age of 7. And if that subluxation goes uncorrected, it becomes a primary source of stimulus throughout that child's life. So what we're saying is that when we're building the foundation of a nervous system, which is actually happening in the first 2 years of life, if we have a glitch in that foundation, we're going to carry that glitch with us for the rest of our lives. Exactly. And so the importance of pediatric chiropractic care, we talk about optimum potential and functional potential and subluxations, the time when you make the greatest impact, when you can make the greatest change in someone's nervous system that will be carried on for generations to generations and reset the entire way the nervous system functions, is in their first 2 years of life. I mean, it's great helping people who have low back pain, neck pain, headaches, the whole list of things. That's fine. But that's just literally not even the tip of the iceberg. That's like the ice cube on the iceberg. You know, it's the pediatric practice. I've been in practice now. We've had 4 generations of patients. We're down to 3 because one of the great grandmothers has passed away. But we have 3, take care of 3 generations. We take care of kids and their kids and their kids' kids. And it's just, you know, people, you want to talk about making a practice grow, making chiropractic grow. Imagine if you get someone in not only their lifetime care, but their kids' lifetime care and their kids' lifetime care. That's how chiropractic will grow, right? And so, you know, to address the schools, it's a tough one. I feel like our schools are not doing a great job educating students how to be chiropractors, period. There's a couple of schools out there that may be doing it, but they're taking technique and they're, for lack of a better term, bastardizing it. They're cutting it into segments of the spine and not really realizing that adjustments are about global neurological balance. And once you take that into account, then regardless of what technique you use, the intention to make a global change is set and the paradigm is set. So we need to get the schools to first, besides just teaching, because I don't want them to teach technique if they don't have the philosophical constructs. So we need to get the schools back to the point where they get those philosophical constructs back into the practice of chiropractic or to the education. And from there, it'll just manifest. And if I say to you, look, the first 2 years of life is when your brain is going to grow 101%. 89% of the gray and white matter is going to be laid down. The highest peak of synaptic development is in the 8 months of life. So if you want to build a foundation, it's going to take you the first 2 years of life is where you're going to build down foundation. And if that's your philosophical construct, then you're going to work or find a way to create that philosophical construct or create the reality. And that's what I think we need to do. Don't add the technique unless you have the philosophical construct behind it.
Damn. Yep. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree, because then what we are, Dr. Rosen, is we're nothing but technicians. Exactly. Providing a vehicle that we think and it's the truth, the adjustment's a vehicle that unlocks the body's ability to communicate. And right. It's a global initiative. It's not segmentally related. It's not this does this. Yes. Can we look at the body? Can we look at a merit chart? Can we start understanding what parts of the nervous system control what organs? But guess what? Whether it's a sympathetic or parasympathetic tone, it's a tonal model and it's designed for homeostatic load and it's designed for a symphony and harmony, right? So that's what makes learning from you so special. And I'm listening to you and I'm going back to lectures, listening to you. And man, I am so happy I learned from you. This is crazy because this is exactly, you have molded my brain so much, just so you know how I think. And those of you that have been listening to this podcast since day one, I think Dr. Rosen just pretty much repeated everything I did over the last 160 episodes in about 3 minutes, because you guys have heard this time in and time out. Now, Dr. Rosen, when you're going in and talking about 0 to 2 and then 2 to 7, let's go 2 to 7.
Okay.
And we go back to Major's research here. Right. And I know that's where you're a student of, but 2 to 7 is a very, very integral part of the body as well. Can you dive into that a little bit?
Sure. So there's several breaking off points in developmental nervous system. So when kids start to develop, we'll talk about milestones. Each milestone is a neurological developmental step. And those are all pre-programmed into our nervous system. There's a pre-programmed proprioceptive feedback loop that fires off at specific times so that we can hold our head up, we can crawl, we can sit, we can, I mean, you know, all those milestones are set and pre-programmed. So they're developmental. By the time you're around 18 months, right? You should hit all those milestones. That is a cutting off point. That is your next stage of development. What's so interesting, what I find so interesting, is that not only is that 18-month the cutting off point for that, but it's also between 18 months and 24 months is a cutting off point for the primal reflexes to disappear. So this is all pre-programmed into our system. And then I'm going to bring my little friend here. Okay, here's my little cranium. And so all the cranium has are these little fontanelles, soft spots, right? And the whole idea of these soft spots are to allow the cranium to expand. Well, guess when the last fontanelle closes? 18 months.
18 months.
18. So we've got that window, that first 2 years, we lay the foundation. Now you're talking about 2 to 7. And now that's when we have to integrate the system, right? So by the time you're age 6, you have created an integrated nervous system that actually, barring any traumas or any major damage or disease processes, that's the nervous system you're going to live with for the rest of your life. So the first 2 years, you lay the foundation. The next 5 years is when you actually integrate the system. So by the time you're age 6, and Bruce Lipton talks about it, Major DeJohnette talks about it, they talk about that the programming of the subconscious and the nervous system is pretty much set in the first 6 years of life. You're like an empty computer, that information is being taken in and you're processing it. So now you have the information, you have the integration, and you have a nervous system that you're going to be living with pretty much for the rest of your life. You know, if you talk about certain kids are good at athletics, certain kids are good at math, certain kids are good at science, you know, all this. This is that first 6 years is when you become that person, when you react to your environment. Perfect example of that is you take a situation, right? You hear about, you know, 2 people who grew up in 2 different, so let's say take my wife and I, all right? I grew up in New York. She grew up in New Hampshire. I drove a taxi when I was a kid. She lived in kind of the boondocks. So when we get into traffic patterns, right? If we get into traffic, we react differently to that traffic because that's how our nervous system is programmed to do that. I tend to be what she calls aggressive. I call it motivated.
Motivated, that's right.
Right. And she tends to be laid back, which I call unreactive. But regardless of the fact is, that's the way your nervous system. So those first 7 years, you're taking a nervous system, you're then developing it, you're laying a foundation, you're creating literally potential, right? You're creating potential, and then you're taking that potential, you're integrating that potential, and then you're done. You know, you're like, if you ask your mom, and I know my kids have asked me too, my older daughter said, you know, was I like this when I was a kid? You know, I've done so much work on myself and I've done all this. And I'm like, yeah, you're the same person that you were as a kid. You have developed other educated mindsets around it, but the way you adapt to whatever you've learned in your environment was set when you were a little kid. And so that's why that point is so important.
I think that explanation was perfect. And that's where we have to jump in here, guys, when we listen to this and really come in, is that this 0 to 7 year window is extremely important. 0 to 2 is literally life-changing. 2 to 7 sets it up. And then after 7, it's basically learned compensatory response from that point forward of a nervous system that's already developed. And the thing is that we think about that is that we don't want to be compensating in life. This is a big thing. You want to be actively adapting. That's what makes us the most beautiful, amazing organism on the planet that was created, is this adaptation. So when we start to compensate, Marty, where do you see the biggest failures where with a doctor, when they're going about taking care of patients and they're looking at this from a symptoms-based approach, where do you see that falling off and not working properly?
Well, so here's the deal. Compensate. So we're fault tolerant mechanisms, which means we'll adapt to stressful environments. We'll do the best we can. And in most cases, probably 90% of the time, our body adapts in a very, very, very good manner. And the reason for that is if it didn't, we would be dead by the time we were 7. But there is a remnant of, 10% that we don't adapt well to when we compensate for. So the more you compensate, the more you lower your threshold for adaptability. So what happens in most kids who get diagnosed with learning issues or neurological disorders, it's not to their age 3 or 4 where that happens, because that is when the prefrontal cortex kicks in, and that's when their brain really has to start to rise up to the occasion. And if their brain can't do that because the functional levels below that are already adapting, it breaks down. It's the same thing. So you have a patient comes in, right? 35-year-old man comes into your office because he was taking a grocery bag out of the back of his car and his back, air quotes, went out. And he couldn't move. He comes to see you as a chiropractor. Now, is anybody listening, or even that person, think that it was that grocery bag that caused his back to do that? Or was it a compensatory reaction that occurred because over time, his body was adapting, and he reached a threshold where it couldn't adapt anymore? So what we see in kids is the same thing. So if a kid comes in and their parent has a list of symptoms, whether it be my kid has allergies, my kid is constipated, my kid's behavioral issues, whatever it is, if we're looking at the kid only in that moment in time, just like if I'm only looking at the guy with the low back at that moment in time, I'm missing the entire course of events that led him there. And with chiropractic, and that's what I love about SOT, the whole idea is you meet the patient where they're at, and then you start to peel off the layers to get to the primary subluxation. And that's what we want to do, is we want to uncover, why did this happen to you? You know, people go, oh, why did this happen, doc? I'm like, it happened not because, you know, you were sitting too long or because you were stressed out. It happened because your nervous system was in a compensatory state that you can no longer adapt to. So let's find out why your nervous system was compensating, where those linchpins are to open those compensations to give you a broader threshold to function.
You know, and that's right on. That's actually how I look at it. And I was talking to John Minardi a few episodes back, and Dr. John had talked about when patients are in, they're looking to get out of pain, and that's only 10% of the journey. That's only 10% of the problem. That's exactly. That's the tone. That's the signals going back to the brain saying something's wrong, which is the slowest firing fiber in the body is the C fiber, which is what pain travels on anyways, right?
Exactly.
So, and it's all, in my mind, it's also kind of the dumbest because it's the slowest. So we got to figure out a way how to harness it. Now, Dr. Rosen, what do you think right now? A little bit about you real quick. I know you've put together a program to help docs get themselves prepped. What is this all about? I know what it is, but can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, so we have been teaching, Nancy and I, my wife, Nancy, we taught our first seminar in 1980. So that's when we taught our first seminar. Yes, sir. Okay. That is it. So I've been teaching not only for the ICA, but I'm teaching my program for years. So what we've done during the COVID pandemic, we created the Peak Potential Institute. Mm-hmm. And the Peak Potential Institute houses all of our educational material. It houses all our online classes. It houses all our hands-on classes and all our books. So that's where you would go if you wanted to go and find out more about my stuff. You go to peakpotentialprogram.com, and it has everything that we teach. So we're running right now, we're running 4 online classes, and starting this April, my pediatric certification series starts in Boston. April, June, and September, there are 3 16-hour hands-on seminars, and we run them periodically. So that is what we have. And we have about, I think, 10 or so online classes that you can take, everything from introduction to cranial adjusting to intraoral adjusting to SOT. And I have my pediatric care manual. And the last thing we put together, my wife and I, which I think is here, I'm going to grab it for a second. For all of those in your office who want to be able to explain to people why you do what you do, and for your patients who want to understand it, it's this, our book, it's called It's All in the Head. And the whole idea of this book is to lay down the anatomy, the physiology, the milestones, the primal reflexes, and what parents should be looking for abnormal developmental milestones or abnormal developmental structural and functional issues. So if you do cranial work, then this book is very helpful. You can hand it to your patient. It'll explain why you do what you do. It explains the neuromeningeal system. And the whole idea is to make it easier for chiropractors to talk about what we do and why we do it. And it's simplified, but not watered down. And I just want to say one more thing. The reason we wrote this book is because we were really, really getting worried that people were starting to take things that are considered common as normal. And normal, and lowering the threshold for our children's development. The CDC just did that when they put out their milestone chart, which we had about 2 hours. We could talk about that. But basically, we do not want to accept common as normal. We want to accept functional potential. That's what we're looking for. So that's what motivated us to write this book, is because we did not want parents to have no place to go. and not have any idea, because mothers intuitively know when something's wrong. So we wanted them to have a venue and something to support them to understand that what they were seeing was really what was necessarily needed to be taken care of.
I'll tell you what, Dr. Rosen, I am one of one. I know you're one of one. So is Nancy.
Right.
And for anybody to look at me and say it's okay to be common, it's okay to be mundane, that's BS. And that's not how I was designed. That's not how my nervous system's designed. That's not how every cell from cell is designed. And to look at things and to start changing this, it irritates me a little bit. And I'm on the point of, I'm pissed, and it's not you. It's the fact that for some reason, mediocrity in society is completely become the norm, and it's become the honorary thing. And we start seeing us lose our potential as human beings. How the hell are we okay with that?
Right. I have to say, it came from the generation, and I probably will get some flack for this, but it came from the generation where everybody gets an award for existing.
Yeah.
And it inhibits people's innate ability to strive for something better. If everybody gets the same thing, and if everybody strives and you just make everything vanilla, then we lose our motivation. At least that's how I feel. We move on, and there's nothing wrong with being motivated. And there's nothing wrong with people who are not motivated. We don't all have to be the same, but you do not really want to, just like you said, it pisses me off that we want to basically accept mediocrity.
It's not because what happens is we get under functioning nervous systems, and we're seeing it play out right now. And we're losing our amazing abilities to adapt because we're not functioning and firing like we're supposed to. It's no different, folks out there listening, and you have somebody in their 70s and you put a Sudoku in front of them or a crossword puzzle. It makes that brain fire. It makes it wire. It makes it go. Right. And if we take the challenge away, all of a sudden mediocrity rules the day. And it's the same thing with our adjustments. We take the challenge out of the adjustment. We start using the adjustment as just it's a service, and everybody comes in, they get lined up, they get adjusted. It doesn't work that way. No. And if you want it to work that way, that's fine. You can charge $26 a visit, and that's cool. But if they want the real experience, if they want the real equilibrating experience where their body starts functioning like it's supposed to, and that magic, the amazingness the body works with, that's where chiropractic needs to sit, and we need to get some fires lit under some butts again, Dr. Rosen.
We need specificity. We can't take people's spines, people's nervous systems, they're different. So, and your technique should be able to adapt to that, to be able to determine what that person needs. You know, it's like if you deal with kids with autism, right? There are certain kids with autism that really like a very strong touch. There are kids with autism like a very light touch. You have to have a technique that can adapt to whatever that need is, or to be able to refer their patient out. So I do have some issue with the $26 lay down and do a flying 7. It's just a thing that I don't really feel is in the best interest of our profession, of the people's nervous system, especially pediatric nervous system. So yeah, if you want to do pediatrics, there are amazing marketing people out there. And I know there are amazing programs that do marketing. If you have a program that does marketing, doesn't give you the technical skill to basically handle the kids that come in, then that's falling short as far as I'm concerned.
You are falling short. And
I am not the best marketer, but we are never for a lack of new patients. And it's because of what we do. It's not because of what I do on Facebook, or it's not because of what I do in these podcasts. It's because of what we do in our office. And we've been in practice 40 years, and it's still Nancy, because, you know, I'm in practice alone right now. My daughter has gone on to practice by herself, so we have decided what to do, but she sends out 4 to 5 new patients a day that we just can't take. And we are very picky about who we send them to. That's why on our website, you know, all the people who have taken our classes, there's a certification page, and you go into the certified doctors, and we refer to them. We refer to people, you know, near us. If I live near you, I would refer to you, you know. Well, you refer to people you need to refer to people who have a skill set to be able to manage and handle the people that you refer to in a professional way and in a specific way.
I absolutely love it. And I've said this in the past. I stand on the shoulders of giants, and you're another one, Dr. Rosen, that I stand on. And I truly appreciate you. And it's been an absolute honor having you on. And what's the best way for my listening audience to get a hold of you again? How can they find you? Can they call you, Dr. Marty? What's the best ways?
So you can go to peakpotentialprogram.com and get all the classes. If you want to email me, you can go to martinrosen@gmail. That's an easy place. You send us an email, we'll get there. And if you want to check out my office, the other website for that is Wellesley, WELLESLEY, Chiro.com. But any one of those venues will be able to get you in touch with us. And we love to, if you have questions, if you want to, of course, we're also on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. I am there as well, so you can catch me there. But if you have questions or you want to take our courses and want to know more about what we do, those are 3 venues that you can contact us, and we'd love to have you come. And we love to teach. That's what we do. We don't have to be doing this anymore, but I just feel like it's my calling to do that. And I love to teach. I love to see people like Skip, who's taking some of our classes, move where he's going. I think the best thing a teacher can see is to see their students do as good, if not better than them. And that's really what it's about.
Thank you. I agree with you. And I feel that way. And there you have it. That's Dr. Marty Rosen. And I strongly 100% endorse everything that he has, teaches, and stands for. You will not find a better, more caring person and actually want to see you succeed and give you the knowledge that you can come back to all the time and know that it's solid and there's no shakeability to it at all. So everyone go out there, look up Dr. Rosen, please go to his classes, go learn. You guys learn from me, but you need to learn from the person that taught me, and he's right here in front of you and he's sitting between your ears. So Dr. Marty, thank you so much for coming on. I really, truly appreciate it. Everybody now go out there and get it done. Take care.
All right.
Thanks, Dr.
Thanks
Marty.
a lot, Skip. I
Bye.
appreciate it. All right. Have a great day now.